my concern for some firms is they get people onto cloud, your zeros, your QBOs, and think that's it. You've been to the road shows, you've watched all the sessions, and we're just undervaluing ourselves there. You can tell someone what they should do, but you don't tell them what to do.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this episode of How To with Pixie and XU Magazine. I'm delighted to be joined today by Matt Flanagan. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Jordan. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good. So Matt's joining me today. Matt, do you want to give us a quick intro to who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I help accounting firms with our company Abacus really start to build a revenue stream utilising process and service around the app ecosystem. So essentially making sure they're making some revenue out of the app ecosystem that links into cloud accounting.
Nice. Okay. And the topic that we're going to be running through today is how to build an app stack and also how to monetize it. So let's jump straight in with the first question. With all the apps in the ecosystem that are out there, I know there's hundreds of add-ons for Xero and QuickBooks. Where do firms start?
Probably the main question I get is, Matt, can you just tell me what the 10 apps are that I just choose and just get on with it? And it would be so easy if it was that, because I could just create some content and some education and just dish that out all the time. But I think essentially what we're seeing at the moment is there's been a real clamour, because we've seen so much software come into the cloud accounting ecosystem, that it's become quite overwhelming for accounting firms. And you've got your Xerocons and your QE Connects and your roadshows and your Accountexes and all those types of things. And Dan Cockington's Digital Accountancy Show, those things which are really going to showcase a lot of the tech. But really, for me, the tech is only solving business problems. So what we have to really be doing is looking at, what business problems are we consistently solving as a firm for our clients? Or what business problems do our clients regularly have and we've yet to find a solution for them? Because then that's where the app is going to come in, when it solves a business problem. Whereas at the moment we're seeing accounting firms going, I'm going to pick 10, 15 apps. I'm going to just really push them out to the client. And we haven't really understood whether they're going to be a fit for the type of business problems their client base have.
Yeah.
So my view is spend the time understanding what business problems your clients have, then pick your apps, as opposed to trying to pick all your apps first and then go out to clients. So just need to change the order of that, really.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into that. So we're talking about business problems here. What are some of the common business problems that SME clients might have that apps can help solve? It's
this whole technology area at the moment that we've seen. Some of the solutions that we've seen, like expenses and payment linking, Go Cardless and Stripe, into some of the cash flow tools. If we rewind even just back to 2014, a lot of those tools weren't available to an SME, right? So we have been, let's say expense claims or credit control. Credit control, you went and employed somebody who maybe came in a couple of times a week or a couple of times a month, and they'd ring round, check the debtors on the invoices and go and chase them. And if it's an expense claim, we've all done these, I'm sure. You filled in a spreadsheet and then you clicked your receipts to it, put it in for an expense claim, right? That's only back in 2014. So we've now got this new world where we can really help streamline some of our clients' businesses, but it's going to be up to us to educate the clients that there's better ways of doing things. And back even 2004 doesn't even sound that long ago, but the world has changed a lot. So we've got all this great tech, and I think we really have to be the nurturing party as accountants to go and take this out to the client base. So the finance function for me of payments and credit control and cash flow and reporting, all those great areas, they can easily be adopted by a lot of SMEs, but so many SMEs that we still speak to now aren't even aware that they could work in a better way. And I think that my concern for some firms is they get people onto cloud, your Xeros, your QBOs, and think that's it. And that's just the start, and somebody else might come along and advise and offer a lot more automation, efficiency, technology, which might turn the head of some of your clients, essentially.
Okay, so you kind of alluded to it there in the last sentence, that I guess a risk of not looking at this stuff is that if there's a more tech savvy firm down the road that is being a bit more active with Xero and QuickBooks and the surrounding app ecosystem, then all it takes is that kind of one conversation with the client to make them think, oh, why is my accountant not doing this and this other one is?
Yeah, and the tech is moving so quickly, right? So I think it was like Zero said that they've done like 2,000 updates, feature fixes, whatever it might be in a year. So we're coming across businesses now who are like we've been speaking to in the SME world, and they'll be still utilizing a piece of software, cloud accounting software, as they did when it was implemented back in 2015. So even the core product has moved on a lot, let alone the surrounding ecosystem, which could solve some business problems. So back in the desktop day or a good old spreadsheet, nothing really moved that quickly. So if you had a spreadsheet for 4 years, you had a spreadsheet for 4 years. And, you know, if you had a desktop piece of kit, it maybe did a yearly update, or maybe quarterly at best, but it was very minute or specific functions. Whereas I think now this is such a quick moving space that, you know, a year can just be too long. And for somebody else to turn up to your client and say, oh, you could be working a little bit better just by utilizing a couple of extra features or extra apps, then we've got to be mindful of that, I think, when we're adopting cloud for our firm and for the clients. Okay.
So let's say that a firm, it's identified a few of these business problems. Let's use credit control as an example. So it knows that a few of its clients could need a hand with credit control, and they've identified something like Chaser as being a potential solution.
Yeah.
What happens next? Like, how do they take that app and turn it into something that they can actually charge for, as opposed to just saying to the client, oh, here's an app you can use, and giving it away for free?
There's a real skill to this. And back in 2014, 15, in Blue Hub land, when I worked primarily with SMEs, the real skill was like giving all of this away because it felt good. So I'll have a chat with you, Jordan. Oh, you want credit control? Or here's Chase, or here's Targo, or whatever system it might be. And you walk away feeling great, but your revenue is like no different to the minute you started the conversation. But you've been to the road shows, you've watched all the sessions, and we're just undervaluing ourselves there. So the key is, and I talk about this a lot on the Accelerator program with our firms that we work with there, is that like the key is you can tell someone what they should do in a value. So you should go and look at credit control, or you should be going and look at expense management, but you don't tell them what to do. So there's a real skill there in learning that. So you don't go, oh, there's Chase, going to have a look. Oh, there's some credit control options. We can definitely improve it, but we need to know a little bit more about how you're working to make sure it's going to fit. And then you're into a conversation around, here's a service, here's a process. At the moment, a lot of firms are giving that skill, that expertise away because there's no sort of commercial process in place in order to say, right, okay, you want something, I've got an appetite or a demand for it. Now this is what we do in order to offer this. So like with credit control, you could be doing outsourced credit control where they pay you to do all the chasing and you just link into the cloud accounting function, or you could do an implementation and training, which is a service with a cost in order to allow that business to have their own finance credit control area.
Okay, so when it comes to, I guess, the commerciality of these apps and what firms can charge for when it comes to scoping them out and helping businesses implement them, what kind of fees are we talking about? What could an average accounting firm expect to charge for scoping and implementing a credit control app, for example?
Yeah, so we did back in MTD. So when there was a big pre-MTD, when a big move towards cloud, we did some audits with firms where they would manage, they would monitor how long it would take them to manage a conversion to cloud. Okay, and a lot of them were giving it away for free just because of the virtue of the actually you're sort of making us do this because of MTD, the SME would feel. And we monitored that, and the average that we came up with was between 10 and 12 and a half hours per conversion, with the pre-conversation, with maybe the demonstration of the software, maybe then actually looking at how their existing system works and getting data across, then the training, then the support, and then some process redefinition. So like a lot of firms are still swallowing that. So we tend to see for some sort of cloud conversion between the 800 to sort of 1200 mark is something to look at. It's going up. But even for basic finance function reviews, maybe digital health checks, you start looking at 250, 300 upwards to get those done. So there's some good return, but I think a lot of people, one, unaware they could do it, two, then don't have the process, or three, it's I don't want to tell this client there's a fee involved. So, but there is definitely a revenue stream there.
Okay, so I guess very high level, what does this process look like? What are the steps involved from figuring out if a client has a problem to actually implementing the app? What are all the steps in between people need to be aware of?
First step is getting more information out of the client, right? So because we've got to understand what the pains are. So we don't want to assume that I know what Jordan's issue is with his business. So we've got to have a way that we call it a fact find, but we have to go and get better information, and that should be in a uniform manner across your firm. So we'll talk about a fact find, gathering information, ascertaining the pain points, and then at that point we've got something to review. One, to see if we can help them and how we can help them. And we do ask things like, what's your budget for getting things fixed and or improving your processes? Just so we've got an understanding of whether they've got 50p or 50 grand. So we can change how we're going to then communicate back. From that point then, when we have the next conversation with the client, we will tell them the areas of what can be achieved, what can be approved, but not necessarily how to do it. And if you want the how, then we're into a service of either implementing or scoping or processing some sort of system for them. So that's the key step there, is to have fact find, understand the pains, tell them if you can fix their pains, but not necessarily how. And then when they're interested in the how, that's when you offer your service and your processes, your implementation and your scoping in and around that as well. So that's the very high level, quick sort of 2-minute overview of it. But essentially, yeah, there is a defined process you need to follow. Sure.
Okay. So if I was a firm and this process makes sense and I was looking to implement it, I guess going back to the very beginning, how would I get more proactive in terms of being able to offer this to my clients? What would the steps that I need to do to identify the opportunities and be able to offer it to them?
Well, in terms of if you've got a cloud base, you can actually do quite a lot of proactive work on the cloud base without the client even knowing. So if you've got a bunch of clients on cloud accounting, you can go and health check and review what they're doing in the background anyway. So there's definitely an element of being proactive with that. The other essence is if you don't have that access, then on your sessions, asking a few more questions around the systems, the efficiency, the business problems. Maybe it's even they're looking for reports which they can't see but will be really useful. Asking a little bit more around the data and systems to understand if there's a pain there that you can go and solve for that client. So if they're on cloud, you should be doing some work in the background, some health checks, some reviews. If they're not on cloud, it's really bringing that into your standard meetings as an agenda point. Can I just ask a little bit about your systems and maybe is there any reporting visibility you're looking for?
Yeah. Okay. I guess one of the things I was thinking about is this would be quite new for a lot of accountants. It's a very new area of accounting. It's kind of been born out of the fact that the app ecosystem has developed so much over the last few years. So in terms of like time commitments, resources, how firms can actually go about delivering this stuff or even figuring out how to deliver it, what would your advice be there?
You definitely need a resource pool. The biggest reason this stagnates, this type of project, is there's not enough resource given to it. But I think there's not enough resource given to it because they don't understand the revenue or the outcomes it could achieve. So we'll have people who've already got 120% of a job, and they'll be given 20% more to look at cloud on the side here and there. You've really got to make a commitment to it in terms of invested internally into really starting to deliver this as a core service, as a core fundamental part of your firm. So definitely the resource, you need to think about that. If you've got a project which is stagnating with cloud adoption, just have a check on your resource and check it's not one person who's doing strategy or too small a percentage doing strategy, implementing, support, selling, the whole shebang. It's just not going to really go at any sort of speed. So definitely make sure you've got a resource pool and put some outcomes of what you want, whether that's how many clients you want on cloud or some certain outcomes around that. Maybe it's how many the revenue you can get from cloud conversions. Just we need some targets really to monitor ourselves against with that.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess we're essentially talking about creating a full project for this, setting some targets and KPIs, and then just actioning it and measuring the results.
Yeah, absolutely. And expecting, like with any change, like there's problems, right? So it's not going to go all hunky-dory and smooth. So it's also being able to roll with the punches, but expecting the punches. So we know things are going to come, but it's a case of just keeping consistent, keeping with it, and you get to the end of whichever phase at whichever point, but you do get there, and then you can move on to the next part.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned right at the beginning around apps, and you said if people always ask you about what are the top 10 apps that they need, let's broaden that question slightly. In terms of building an app stack, what are the different app categories that people might need or should consider at the very minimum?
Yeah, so I mean, as accountant, there's a real obvious place that I see for accountants to really fulfill this whole app. So at the moment it's 800, and that can cover like till systems and stock systems and online selling systems and aggregators between eBay and Amazon and all this type of thing. That's all great stuff, right? And we need to be aware of the business problems it solves, not necessarily the down to the earth features that we need to, down to the nitty gritty, features that we need to see. But in terms of, if you're thinking about an accountant, they're very much around financial control. And that's why I think the finance function is where we should start. So it should be the view of a good cloud adoption for me is you've got a cloud vendor like a Xero, QBO, Free Agent, Sage, whatever you've got there. Then we've got a bank feed, and then we've got an invoice automation, which is like a receipt bank, HubDoc, data milling, auto entry. That should be what cloud is. Anything less is not cloud, because we're just really using it as a piece of compliance software, not up to date. So if we've got the bank feed, we've got the invoice automation, and we're processing monthly, we've got data which is up to date 12 times a year, and that's what we want to do. We can do a lot more insightful elements. So those are the first two: get a bank feed and get your invoice automation in. Then we can build out the finance function, which is things like the payments, the credit control, the cash flow, the expense management, invoice finance if it's needed, reporting in general. So then we could, that's where I think that we really need to spend time as accountants, because that's where we can already understand financial control, and we're aware of those types of functions, whether they are digital or otherwise. They're still functions that have been around for a while. So it does make sense that the accountants are the right people to take that finance function app stack to the clients.
Yeah,
great opportunity.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. I guess just rounding things off then, it's nice to finish these with a bit of an action plan, so people can leave with 3 to 5 actionable points in terms of how they can actually go and implement this, building an app stack and monetizing it. What would those 3 to 5 points look like? It
would be, the first point is ensure that your definition of a cloud adoption is that bank feed, invoice automation, and monthly processing is minimum. That has to be cloud. Not I've got so many 100 on cloud and we look at them once a year or 4 times a year. So action point 1 is make sure you redefine as a firm what a good adoption of cloud is. Action point 2 is make sure that you've got a default, I call that Cloud Accounting Platform 1, that good level of cloud adoption. Make sure you've got a default app stack. So if you're a Xero and a receipt bank bod, then make sure that you make those your default, and those are your go-to. You want to become masters of these tools, not jack of all trades where the clients can pick and you know a little bit about it. If you've got 4 QBO, Xeros, Sage and Free Agent, and they're all doing 1,000, 2,000 upgrades a year, you've got like 8,000 upgrades to keep an eye on, which is pretty difficult. So that's point 2, is try and pick your own app stack and be really, really disciplined on being the best at those that you can be. And then I'd say point 3 is then look at that finance function and start speaking to clients about those different areas of the finance function. What do you do for credit control? What do you do for expenses? And when you start to ask those questions, you'll start to see who's got pains. You'll start to see trends of pains across your firm. Then you can apply your finance function app stack. So I'd start smaller, work in the place that you already know, which is finance functions anyway, financial control, and then apply those apps that you build commercial partnerships with. And then think about 4th part I would add to that is, if somebody says I do want a credit control, make sure you've got some services, processes, and a commerciality to that service, so you're charging for it.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. It's got to be worth the time that they're putting into it.
Definitely.
Just picking up on one of the things you mentioned there, you said that your level of cloud, or it's not really a cloud firm unless they're using a cloud accounting ledger with invoice automation and bank feeds. For firms that might be cloud, and they might have 0 gold status or platinum status and have a few hundred clients on the cloud, but they're not utilizing things like invoice capture and bank feeds for the majority of their clients. Would you say that they're not actually cloud firms, or?
They're cloud want-to-be firms. They've got the badges, but we're not demonstrating use of cloud. The risk for those people, and MTD has been a big problem for this, really, because lots of people have been put on for an MTD reason, nothing else, but this is real-time software we're talking about. And the risk for those firms is that somebody else turns up to those clients and says, oh, hey, you're not being as automated or as efficient as you could well be. And we can do a quick health check and give you some recommendations. So that's the issue, is that you're really putting your client base out there if they're not getting the best experience of cloud or the latest updates to cloud. So yeah, it's a real opportunity, but also a real risk as well.
Nice. Okay, Matt, this has been really helpful. Thank you very much. If anyone's got any more questions for you about app stacks, app advisory, monetizing apps, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, so pretty active on LinkedIn, and we've got a Facebook group which is sort of free to join. 1,100 odd accountants in there and bookkeepers. So talking about apps and trying to help each other. So I'm sure we can put the link in the notes there if anyone's interested.
Link will be below.
The link will be below. Yeah, so find me there, LinkedIn or the Facebook group.
Great. All right. Thanks a lot for your time.
Cheers, Jordan. Thanks, mate.